Binto was born with very long hair while her twin sister was born bald. This made her sister jealous and she did the unspeakable. That evening, Binta sat alone under the shade of the ogo tree in their compound. The voices of the villagers praising Binto still rang in her ears. She clenched her fists and whispered to herself, I cannot sit and watch her stand in my way. The villagers will never see me if she keeps shining. I must end this, once and for all. Her eyes grew hard, and her heart turned darker. That night, while the others slept, she made a plan, one so dangerous that it would cost her sister's life. In the same village, rumors had been spreading for months. Men from the city often came, claiming they were looking for young maidens to work in big houses and shops. They promised riches, good clothes, and better lives, but the whispers were different. Some said these men were not saviors but hunters. That the girls they took never came back. Some were said to be enslaved, others forced into shameful work in the city. The villagers had no proof, but fear grew quietly in their hearts. Binta, however, saw in them an opportunity. Very early in the morning, before the cock crowed, Binta walked to the small hut where the city men lodged whenever they came. Her feet were heavy, but her mind was set. She greeted them with a smile and whispered her plan. She would bring someone to them. A maiden they could take. They nodded slowly, their eyes dark and greedy. When Binta returned home, she found her sister under the mango tree. With a forced smile, she sat beside her. Binto, she began, her voice soft and trembling, I want to say sorry. I was wrong to cut your hair. I have learned from my mistakes. I want to love you genuinely, like a sister should. Binto's eyes widened with surprise, then softened with joy. She had missed her sister's love. She quickly hugged Binta, wrapping her in warmth. That day, they fetched water together at the stream, laughing as they had not done in months. They walked to the village square side by side, their steps matching, their smiles bright. For the first time in a long while, everything seemed well. Binto's heart was full, and she believed her sister's words. But behind Binta's smile was a storm waiting to break. Her plan was still alive, hidden deep inside her heart. Every kind word she spoke, every laugh she shared, was only a mask, and so the days passed quietly, until one evening, Binta told her sister, let's go to the stream before it gets dark. The water jars are empty. Binto, still believing her sister's new kindness, agreed with a smile. They walked together, side by side, their shadows stretching along the narrow bush path. When they reached the stream, Binto bent down to fill her pot. That was the moment Binta struck. She lifted a heavy stick and, with trembling hands, hit her sister hard from behind. Binto gasped and fell to the ground. Fainting on the sand, Binta's breath came in sharp bursts. She looked around quickly, no one was there. With all her strength, she dragged Binto's body into the bush, hiding her under the thick leaves. Moments later, the men from the city arrived, just as planned. Their faces were hard, their eyes greedy. Without a word, they lifted Binto and carried her away into the darkness. Binta stood frozen for a moment, her chest rising and falling. Then she turned and ran back to the village. When she reached home, she burst into tears and cried, Mother! Father! We were attacked. Some men from the city came and tried to take us. I fought them off and escaped, but they took Binto away. Her mother screamed in shock, clutching her chest. Villagers gathered quickly. They ran through every corner of the village, shouting Binto's name, searching the bush paths, the market square, the stream, but it was too late. Binto was already on her way to the city. When Binto finally woke, her head ached. She found herself in a strange room, the windows sealed, the door locked. She sat up quickly, her eyes wide with fear. Where am I? She whispered, pressing her hands against the walls. Suddenly, the door creaked open. A young boy entered, carrying a plate of food. He placed it on the floor and said softly, "Eat." Binto shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "Please, where is this place? Take me back home." But the boy said nothing more. He only turned and walked out, locking the door behind him. Back in the village, Binto's mother cried until her eyes were swollen. She sat on the ground, beating her chest and calling her daughter's name, "My child. My beautiful child. Where are you?" The villagers gathered to comfort her, but no words could heal her pain. Everywhere in the village, people whispered about the girl with the long hair who had been taken by city men. Binta, on the other hand, sat quietly in a corner of the hut. Deep inside, she was happy. She told herself, "Now she is gone. Now they will see me at last." But as the days passed, she realized her victory was empty. The villagers never looked at her with admiration. They never said, "Binta, you are beautiful." Instead, they only spoke with sorrow, "The girl with the long hair is missing. Poor Binto." And Binta's heart twisted with a new kind of pain. Worse than before, days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Still, Binto was never found. At first, the villagers searched and whispered, but slowly their voices grew quiet. Life in the village went on as if nothing had happened, but in her hut, Binto's mother never stopped grieving. She sat by the doorway each evening, staring at the path that led to the stream, hoping one day her daughter would walk back. Her eyes were tired, her body weak, but her heart still cried for Binto. Binta, meanwhile, lived with a knot in her chest. She pretended to help around the house, but her thoughts were poisoned with fear. What if my sister returns? What if they find her and the truth comes out? Far away in the city, Binto's life took a strange turn. The men who had taken her soon noticed how her long hair made her different. It was more than beauty, it was rare, it was powerful. They saw an opportunity. Within months, Binto was dressed up, her hair styled and photographed. Pictures of her were printed in newspapers and magazines. Hair brands came knocking at the doors of those who held her. "Let her wear our products," they said. "Her hair will sell them." Binto became a celebrity without even knowing it. Her face was on posters across the city. She was admired, praised, and followed, but only for her hair. Behind the cameras, she remained a prisoner, controlled and used while others grew rich from her beauty. One fateful day, a man from Binto's village traveled to the city. After finishing his business, he stopped by a roadside seller to buy akara. The woman wrapped the hot bean cakes in an old newspaper. He carried it with him on the long road back home. On the way, he ate the akara, licking the oil from his fingers. When he was done, he rolled the newspaper to throw it away, but something in him said, "Open it." Slowly, he spread the pages, and froze. There, staring back at him, was the face of Binto. Her long hair shone even in the faded print. Beneath the picture were words he could not fully understand, but the photograph was clear. When he reached the village, he ran straight to Binto's mother. Out of breath, he held the newspaper out. She could not read, but her hands trembled as her eyes fell on the picture. Her lips parted. She pressed the paper to her chest as though it were her daughter herself. "That's my child," she whispered. "My Binto. She is alive." That night, she could not sleep. She kept the newspaper close to her mat, her heart burning with hope. At dawn, she was ready to leave for the city to find her daughter, but in the same hut, Binta's heart twisted. She saw her mother's joy and felt her own chest tighten with dread. If she finds her, the truth will come out. They will know I betrayed her. They will hate me forever. And for the first time, Binta wished her sister would never return. At the break of dawn, Binto's mother set out for the city. The newspaper was folded tightly in her hand, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. She would not rest until she found her daughter. Binta followed quietly behind. Her heart was restless, half afraid, half unwilling, but she knew she could not let her mother go alone. When they reached the city, the noise and the crowd overwhelmed them. Tall buildings rose above their heads, and people moved quickly in all directions. They did not know where to begin. All day, the mother walked the streets, holding up the newspaper. "Please, have you seen this girl? She is my daughter." But everyone she asked shook their heads. Days passed. The mother grew tired, her feet swollen, yet she did not give up. Each morning, she rose and went out again, showing the picture to strangers, begging for help. On the seventh day, when hope was almost gone, she met a kind woman who looked at the paper and said, "I know this girl. She is not far from here. Come, I will take you." The mother's heart leapt. She grabbed Binta's hand, and together they followed the woman through the busy streets until they reached a large house with painted gates. Inside the house, Binto stood, her long hair shining as always. She was dressed in fine clothes. When the mother saw her, she cried out and ran forward, arms wide open. "My child!" But Binto did not move. She stood still, frozen, her eyes wide with shock. She thought it was another fan, another stranger come to admire her hair. She did not recognize her own mother or sister. Her heart was empty, her memory was gone. Tears streamed down the mother's face. She fell to her knees and began to sing the old song she used to sing while combing Binto's hair back in the village. Her voice trembled, but the melody filled the room. Binto stopped in her tracks. She turned slowly. Something stirred deep inside her. The song unlocked a door in her mind. Suddenly, memories flooded back. The village, the square, her mother's hands in her hair, and the night at the stream when her sister struck her. "Mother!" she cried. She ran forward and fell into her mother's arms, sobbing. With her memory back, Binto wasted no time. She called the police, her voice firm and steady. That very day, the men who had taken her were arrested and led away in shame. The news spread quickly across the city. The girl with the long hair had finally broken free. But when Binto turned to her sister, her face grew cold. "Binta," she said quietly, "I remember everything. You betrayed me. You handed me over to them. I cannot trust you again. You will not stay with me." Her words cut sharper than a knife. Binta lowered her head, silent. She returned to the village with guilt in her heart, while Binto chose to remain with her mother. Back in the village, people rejoiced when they heard Binto had been found. She lived happily with her mother, free at last, her long hair shining brighter than ever. As for Binta, she carried the weight of her choices, knowing that jealousy had cost her the love of her sister forever. And so the story ended, with one sister loved and restored, and the other left to live with the shadow of her own actions.